it occurred to me that some of you may not know how to download the presets, the free presets that you received when you subscribed to my newsletter. So I wanted to show you that today and also how you might use them. So the first thing you want to do, of course, is load them onto your computer in a file that you can find easily, and then you'll open up Lightroom, go to the Develop module, and click on this little plus right here on the left-hand side under Presets. Usually when you open it up, it'll look like that. I have mine open. Click on the plus, and you get a little window that asks you if you want to create a preset, import, or manage. So you'll click on Import. That gives you your hard drive menu, and if I click on or type in presets, a list of the presets that I have on my hard drive are shown here. So all of these I've already have loaded in my Lightroom, but I'm just going to click on it and show you. So you have the Tranquil presets. Click on that and we'll click Import. And then I am getting a message that's saying they can't be imported because they're already here. But you will get a different message, and if you have not already downloaded them. So I'm going to click OK on that. And then when I come over to my menu here, I have all the different presets. So I call them Nadine's presets. I think they're probably called Tranquility presets for you. So we have Barely, and when you hover over the name of each preset, excuse me, it shows you what the preset will do as far as how the photo will look. So that's Barely. It's very washed out. Basic is all of the very basic things that you might do to an image. A little bit of contrast, a little bit of clarity, maybe a little desaturation, a tiny bit. There's not much because it's just a very basic preset. Then we have Coolly, which has blue tones. We have Gently, which is slightly desaturated. We have Mellow, another version of that. Oak is a little more deeper, darker, more contrasty. And then we have Softly, which is very soft. It has a lot of negative dehaze, so a lot of haze in it. And then we have Warmly, which obviously is quite warm, as you can see in this photo. Important feature on the presets is this ability to apply a preset and then adjust the intensity up here. So I've applied Southern Comfort, which is another preset that I created, and right now it's at 100%. It's a preset that has some pretty extreme desaturation in it. So if I didn't want this to be quite so intense, I could pull back on the effects of the preset a little bit, and it would still apply the preset, but the intensity is not as great. If I really, really wanted more of that effect of the preset, I could move it above the 100 mark, and it would intensify all the features of that particular preset. It's really an important feature, and I wanted to make sure that I explained that to you. So be sure to use that if that is what's going to work for your image. So for this particular image, I'm going to choose Gently. And let's take a look at the right panel and see what Gently does. So we have -10 contrast, -5 highlights, -10 whites, +15 on clarity, -5 on vibrance, -20 on saturation. So we check the tone curve also. It has a very slight curve, and the blacks are pulled up, so it gives it just a tiny bit of a matte finish. And on the colors, you can see the little dots underneath each color that has some kind of change. So desaturated red, we have desaturated yellow, and a little bit, the hue is pushed to the orange just a little bit, and then luminance comes up 10, plus 10. And then for green, -7, and luminance plus 15. Magenta, -9. And then if we go to color grading, I don't think there's any color grading. No, there's no color grading on that particular preset. And then we have details. There's a little bit of sharpening, although it's less than the standard Lightroom sharpening. But what I've done is I've masked it out. And so if you come down to this fourth slider and hold down, if you're on a Mac, hold down Option and click on the slider, and it shows you exactly where sharpening is placed. So it's only in those white areas. So actually I'm going to have it sharpen just a little bit more. I'm going to pull it down, and you can see more and more white showing. I think I'll keep it right about at 50, and then I'm going to increase the amount just a little bit. We'll go up to 45. And that's then detail. You'll have to decide on noise in your image. There isn't any noise to speak of in this. Let's see, I like to go up to 300%. I know that's kind of overkill, but to really see, and it looks pretty good. There might be a little bit, so I could put in maybe 15 on the luminance slider and leave it at that. And so that's it for detail. Lens correction, I always apply lens correction to my images. And you can see both check marks are done here: remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. Transform, there's no transform in this because we don't have a lot of lines that need to be straightened. And I wouldn't put that on a preset anyway, because many images are not going to need it. You don't want to include anything on a preset that not every image can use. So transform might be needed on another image, but we don't want it in the preset. And then effects, I do have a little bit of a vignette at -7, and the midpoint is reduced down to 45. So that's basically the gentle preset. And the reason I'm showing you these settings is that you may find a couple of presets that you really like, but you want to kind of create your own, and that gives you an idea of the kinds of things that you can do for your preset. So now that we have the preset installed and we've chosen gently for our image, we're going to go back and adjust anything we might want to adjust. It's important that you apply the preset first, because anything you would do before applying the preset will be negated, because the preset will reset these sliders. So you want to apply the preset first and then go in and adjust the sliders. Now, even though my histogram looks correct here, looks good, I think I'm losing some detail in the hydrangea here. So I'm going to go up and use a radial filter. We're going to click here, and on radial filter, radial gradient, I'm going to apply it to this area of the hydrangea. And I'm going to pull down the highlights just a bit, 15 or so, whites maybe about 10, and maybe even exposure a little bit, just because I want to see the detail in the hydrangea, and some of those details are lost. So we can see what the mask has done by clicking on the eye and holding. It shows us what it looked like before the mask, and when I release it, you can see how it looks now with the mask. I want to bring out that blue just a little bit more, so I'm actually going to go to the temperature slider and pull it down just a little bit. I don't want the whites to appear blue, but I do want that blue edging to pop just a little bit more. The other thing that you can do with this radial gradient, I'm going to click on Show Overlay so you can see what I'm talking about, is it has a wide area that it fades off to. So this center area is where most of that adjustment is applied, and then it's faded as it moves away from the center. So this part is where the fading really occurs. So I'm going to pull it out just a little more and a little more here. And then I'll turn that off. And I think I'm going to reduce the highlights even a little bit more, down to 25. I don't want to go too far with that because then they'll start looking very flat and murky, especially with the white slider. I'm at -10 now. If I pulled it way down, you can see it just gets very dull. So we don't want to go more than 10 on the white slider with this. I feel like that looks pretty good. I'm going to release that radial gradient now. The only other thing I might consider is these greens. They're pretty yellow, and might look better if they were not quite so yellow. So I'm going to go to the green slider and push it up into the blue a little bit. We'll try up to 10. And then I'm going to reduce the saturation just a bit. And I'm not sure about luminance green here. Kind of like pulling it down a little bit. So maybe I'll do that. I'll pull it down to 20. See how that works. So turning that off and back on. And then the yellow, excuse me, pulling that down a little bit, off and on. So I'm going to go back up here and look at my histogram. The blacks aren't bad, but I've lost a little bit of the highlights here by reducing the highlights and whites in the hydrangea. So I'm going to come back up without having the radial filter on, come back up to highlights here, bring those back up to a +5, maybe a +15. There's room, there's still plenty of room. And then with the whites, because I want to make sure that I don't go overboard, I'm going to hold that slider notch down and option and pull that up. Make sure there's no clipping. And there's that. So I think that completes my edit. I want to look at this side by side. This is what I started with. This is what I finished with. I almost think I could lighten this a bit more when I look at what I started with here. I do like the greens better here. They're not so yellow. And the pinks and reds and purples here have retained their color quite well. So I'm going to go back to the hydrangea and go back into the radial filter mask that we have and brighten that. Allow that to be brightened just a little bit. So I'm going to pull the highlights back up and the whites back up. Actually, whites up to 0. And then put the highlights back down because I see a little bit of red there. So I think that should do it as far as the preset goes and adjusting the colors for the image itself. The next thing that I would do is go in and clone out these little brown spots on the hydrangea, and that would probably be it. Might add a little bit more of a vignette around the edge. Not sure about that. Now, once you have your edits the way you want it, I have other pictures in this series that I want the editing to match. So if I go to this image that I want to edit next, I'm going to hold down, I'm going to click on the image that I just edited, go to the image I want to edit next. I'm going to hold down the Command key on an Apple, on a Mac, and click on that. And then I'm going to go to this button here, Auto Sync or Sync, and I have everything marked here except for the masking. Now I'm not going to mask. I'm not going to apply the mask to this because there is no hydrangea, and we don't need to apply that mask. And so I'm going to synchronize that. And then when I look at my image here, the highlights are too bright. And I should have unclicked crop. I want to see this crop. Really don't want it cropped other than to level it a bit. So let's check on the level. And I think that's better. So now I can see on my histogram here that the whites are clipping. So I'm going to come down here and pull these whites down because we don't need them to be clipping like that. And that takes care of this highlight right here. And basically we're done unless I wanted to enhance this blossom a little bit, or there's space here for blacks. We could always bring blacks down. Let's see what happens there if we do that. We want to look at the tone curve actually also, because the tone curve has pulled the blacks up. So if we pull that down, then the blacks are very black. There's no clipping yet, but it all works to intensify those blacks a little bit and intensify the blossom. Okay, and I see a little bit of highlight right here. Bring the whites down just a little more and highlights down a little bit and correct that. There, that's my second image now fully edited, just because I took my time on the first image with the preset, with all of the adjustments, and then I was easily able to apply those editing steps to this second image. And I can do that with any of the other images that I took in this series that had the same light. And even though the compositions are a bit different, I had the same basic angle with those. So that's how I hope that you are using the presets. And if you're not, maybe that gives you some ideas. And it's always good to look and see what those presets do and get an idea of what it is that you like about them or don't like, as the case may be. I discovered a few years ago that I really do like a little bit of desaturation, and it doesn't harm the color at all, but it makes it not so glaring to your eye, I guess. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions at all, if you can't download your presets, can't get them into Lightroom, don't know how to use them, or any questions whatsoever, please reach out and I'm happy to answer any questions. That's all for now, so I will talk to you in the next video.